Alright, so last time we discussed about the index of refraction, if you remember that. So the index of refraction is a dimensionless quantity, meaning wala siyang unit. Okay? There will be no unit. It's just a plain number. And we can find the index of refraction n by using the formula n equals c over v. Remember, c is constant. It is the speed of light in vacuum. And this is always equal to 3 times 10 raised to 8 meters per second, or you can write it as 300 million meters per second squared. Okay? So which one will you use? It depends on the value of v. V is the speed of light in the medium. Okay? If the value of v is given as a large number, just like this one, then we use this 300 million. If v is given as scientific notation, then we use the scientific notation. Okay? Here are some examples. I think we discussed this last time, but we're going to discuss them again. So the speed of light in water is about 2.25 times 10 raised to 8 meters per second. What is the index of refraction of water? So here, this number, 2.25 times 10 raised to 8, is in scientific notation, and this is v, the speed of light in water. Okay? So we have our v, 2.25 times 10 raised to 8 meters per second. And remember, c is 3 times 10 raised to 8 meters per second. Why did I use the scientific notation? Because the given is in scientific notation. So the value of n now is equal to c divided by v. So it will be 3 times 10 raised to 8 meters per second divided by 2.25 times 10 raised to 8 meters per second. Okay? So if your calculator can, if you can input scientific notation in your calculator, then you can just go ahead and type all of this in your calculator. But if your calculator is a simple calculator, you should notice that we can cancel times 10 raised to 8. Okay, because it is present in both the numerator and the denominator. That means all we need to type in our calculator is 3 divided by 2.25. And we should get the index of refraction n of water. Wait, I'm going to get my calculator. So here, so we have 3 divided by 2.25. We get 1.75, I think. No, 1.33, I'm sorry. 1.33. So n is 1.33, no unit. Remember, no unit. So this is the index of refraction of water, of light in water. So, ano bang ibig sabihin ng index of refraction na yan? Well, 1.33 means light will slow down 33% when it enters water. Yan ang ibig sabihin yan, okay? Number 2, the index of refraction of, yes? This is constant. Okay, given lagi yan, c. The value of c is always 3 times 10 raised to 8, or it can be 300 million. Okay, so it's a constant. No, hindi magbabago yan. Any other question? Okay, so we proceed. Now, the index of refraction of light in ethyl alcohol is 1.38. Notice that 1.38 doesn't have any unit. That tells us that this is n. Okay? So we have n equals 1.36, and then c, of course, is 3 times 10 raised to 8. Okay? And, or you can, since the index of refraction is given, you can also use the 300 million meters per second. So it doesn't matter this way. So we're looking for v. And the formula is n equals c over v, di ba? N equals c over v. So if we want to find the value of v, we can interchange the value of v and n so that we get v equals c divided by n, like that. So that means the velocity of light in ethyl alcohol will be given by 3 times 10 raised to 8 over 1.36, okay? So, we use our calculator to find that value. So, 3 times 10 raised to 8, yan, divided by 1.36. We will get this value. Okay? 22058, it's a big number. Now, we want to express this in scientific notation. So, pag nag-express tayo sa scientific notation, we only want 3 decimal places. So, we only want until here. Hanggang dyan sa 0 lang. Okay? So, what do we need to do? We need to round off at this particular decimal digit. So, since 5 ang kasunod niya, magiging 1 yan. So, 2, 2, 1 na yan, right? And then, look at that decimal point. We're going to move that until the very end, okay? Until there's only one number before the decimal point. So, count the number of spaces that you will move the decimal point, okay? So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? So, you move the decimal point 8 times, and the decimal point of the answer now will be here, 2.21 times 10 raised to 8. Bakit 8 ulit? Because we move the decimal point 8 times. So, the final answer will be 2.21 times 10 raised to 8. Okay? I hope you understood that. So, V now is equal to 2.21 times 10 raised to 8 meters per second. Now, you might have a question, so now is the right time to ask. No question? All right. Even if you use 300 million, I should say, if you use 300 million instead of 3 times 10 raised to 8, you'll still get this number. Okay? And you have no choice but to follow this step to express it into scientific notation. Okay? Now, enough of that. Now, we will talk about Snell's law. Okay? What is this law? Now, Snell's law gives the degree of refraction and relation between the angle of incidence and the angle of refraction and the refractive indices of a given pair of media. That's too hard to understand. It will be easier if you have an example later. In 1621, okay, Willibrord Snell discovered the law of refraction. Hence, it's called Snell's law. So, it was Snell who discovered this relationship. So, if we want to blame somebody for this particular useless concept, we have Snell to thank for. Alright, so here is the Snell's law. Okay? As you can see here, we have two media. Okay? Pag sinabi nating two media, dalawa yung substance natin. So, substance 1 will be at the top. So, this part is substance 1. We don't know what this substance is. Substance 1. And then this part is substance 2. Substance 2. And this line here is their boundary. Okay? Now, when light passes from one substance to another substance, light bends. Okay? And this blue line is called the incident ray. Okay? Incident ray. And therefore, this angle here is the angle of incidence. Angle of incidence. Incidence. Okay? So, that's the angle of incidence. The green one is called the refracted ray. So, this is the refracted ray. So, it was the bent ray. Nakita nyo, hindi na siya straight, nag-bend siya. So, this angle here is called the angle of refraction. Okay? Now, the Snell's law tells us that the ratio of the sine of this angle of incidence and this angle of refraction will be equal to the ratio of the index of refraction of the first substance divided by the index of refraction of the second substance. This is what this formula tells us. Okay? Yan ang ibig sabihin yan. And when you rearrange this formula, you get this one. Personally, I prefer to use this one, the simpler formula at the top. That's the Snell's law, okay? So let's try some examples. So here we have two substances, air and we don't know what this medium here is, okay? And since n equals 1 for air, remember the index of refraction of air is always 1. We can call this n sub 1, okay? So n sub 1 is 1. So here, we're looking for the index of refraction of the second substance. So let's call that n sub 2. So this is missing. Remember, what is this angle? This is theta 1 or angle of incidence. Okay? And this angle here is theta 2 or angle of refraction. From now on, let's just call them theta 1 and theta 2. Okay? Para hindi tayo mahirapan later sa formula. So theta 1, theta 2. Yan. So we're looking for n. So how do we find n? Well, we use the formula. So remember, n1 sine theta 1, remember yung mga 1 magkakasama sa isang side equals n2 sine theta sub 2. Okay? Lahat ng n magkakasama sa left, lahat ng n sub 1 magkakasama, lahat ng sub 1 nasa left, lahat ng sub 2 nasa right. Okay? Then we substitute now. Well, n sub 1 is 1, so this is 1 times sine of what is theta 1. Theta 1 is 53 degrees. Equals, n sub 2 is missing. And sine theta 2 is 37 degrees. So we put 37 degrees here. Now, before we put anything in our calculator, we have to simplify first. So since we want n sub 2 here, we don't want sine 37 degree here, we're going to divide both sides by sine 37 degrees. Sine 37 degrees, okay? That cancels the sine 37 here. So we will be left with n sub 2 on that side. So n sub 2 now is equal to 1 times sine 53 degrees divided by sine 37 degrees, okay? Now, if your calculator is capable of handling fractions, okay, you'll just type it like this. Type your fraction like that. So we have 1 times sine 53 degrees. Yan. Don't forget the closing parenthesis. Divided by sine 37 degrees. Again, don't forget the closing parenthesis. Then press equal, you'll get this value, 1.33. Okay, because after 2, you get 7. So, magiging 3 yung 2. So, 1.33. So, the index of refraction of the second medium is 1.33. Well, that's all we want. Diba? Yan lang hinahanap natin. But if you remember the previous examples, what substance has an index of refraction of 1.33? Well, there's only one substance with index of refraction 1.33. It means that's for water. Okay? That's for water. So, substance 2 here is water. Alright? So, this is water. Did you understand that? Now, for the sake of our discussion, of course, we just want n sub 2. Okay? Additional lang yung water. I don't usually, ask for what's substance 2 like that. I just ask the index of refraction. Okay? So that's our first example. So let's have another example. So here, remember the angles, okay, will be between the rays and the normal line. Ito yung normal line. Itong dotted line na yan, that's the normal line. So, diyan dapat natin kinukuha yung angle. Now, remember also that the normal line and the boundary are perpendicular. Okay? Ibig sabihin, 90 ang total niyan. Okay? 90 din dito, 90, 90. Lahat yan 90. Okay? That will be useful in this particular example where the angle given is not the angle that we want. Okay? Ito yung given. We want this angle. Okay? Also, we want this angle over here. So, we need to find that angle first. Well, remember, the total of these two angles is 90. So what do you add to 90 to get 50, or what do you add to 53 to get 90? Well, that will be what? 37, correct? 37 plus this is 90. And that means here as well, what will you add? That's 90 minus 37, so you get 53. So this is 53. So we will use these angles, okay? This will be theta 1, okay? 37 degrees, and this will be theta 2. So be careful, the given doesn't give us the angle that we need. We need to look for the given or for the angle first. And this is n sub 1, so we're looking for n sub 2 again. Okay? So we use the formula. Remember, ang mga sub 1 ay nasa left, ang mga sub 2 ay nasa right. Okay? Theta sub 2. Now it's just about substitution. So we have 1.5 times sine of 53 or 37. Well, 37, no? Equals n sub 2, which is missing, sine 53 degrees. Yan. So baka malito kayo, hindi itong 53 degrees na to ang kinukuha natin. Itong red na n sub 2. Okay, now we divide both sides by sine 53 degrees. Yan. To cancel that on the right side. So makakancel yan dito. And therefore, we will be left with n sub 2. So n sub 2 equals 1.5 sine 37 degrees divided by sine 53 degrees. So again, type all of this in your calculator. Sir, wala pong fraction yung calculator ko. So paano po yung gagawin ko dyan? Well, kung walang fraction yung calculator mo, you just put all of this numerator, excuse me, all of this numerator, put all of them in your bracket or parentheses. Lalagay mo sila lahat sa parentheses, and then divided by, ito lalagay mo rin sa parentheses. So, ganyan siya. So, paano siya sa calculator? Ganito siya sa calculator. So, una, maglalagay muna ako ng parentheses. Divided by parentheses. Yan. Yan ang unang gagawin. Tapos, dun sa unang parentheses, ilalagay ko yung denominator. Numerator, I should say. So, 1.5. Yan. Times, or pwedeng wala na yung times, sine 37 degrees. Yan. Don't forget the parentheses. O, nakita nyo? Then on the second parenthesis, I'm going to type this, sine 53 degrees. Again, don't forget the closing parenthesis. So magiging ganyan ang itsura niya, press equal. So you'll get 1.13. Okay, again, round off to 2 decimal places. So 1.13. So n sub 2 is equal to 1.13. Yan. Okay, we don't bother anymore what the substance is 1.13. Any question? So, nasundan nyo, ha? Now, let's move on to another example. So, here, we're looking for the angle of refraction in the lower medium. So, here, we're looking for the angle over here. So, ito naman, angle ang missing. Okay? So, let's call this n sub 1. Let's call this n sub 2. Of course, this is theta 1. So, we're missing theta 2. Yan. We're missing theta 2, so we'll just, plug all of these values in our formula. So, n sub 1 sine theta 1 equals n sub 2 sine theta 2. Substitution, so n sub 1 is 1.5, so 1.5 times sine theta 1 is 45 degrees equals here 2.1 times sine of theta 2. We don't know what theta 2 is. Okay? So, how do we find theta 2? Well, we need to divide both sides by 2.1 first. 2.1. So, we can cancel 2.1 here. So, we'll be left with sine theta 2 equals 1.5 sine 45 degrees over 2.1. And then after that, since we have a sine here, and we're looking for an angle, the process will be to get the arc sine, okay? Para mawala yung sine doon, ililipat mo siya dito, magkakaroon siya ng negative 1 doon sa taas. Okay? So, 1.5 sine 45 degrees divided by 2.1. So if your calculator is good, you can just type all of this all at once, okay? Just like this one. So, paano yung arc sign again? Shift sign yan. Ibig sabihin ng shift sign. Shift sign. So, magiging ganun siya. Then, I'll put my fraction. So, I have 1.5 sine 45 degrees, closing parenthesis, divided by 2.1. Don't forget the closing parenthesis here. So, that's how we type that in our calculator. Press equal. So, we get 30.34. 30.34 degrees. So, our theta 2 is equal to 30.34 degrees kasi angle yan. Sir, hindi po kaya ng calculator ko yan. Pag di kaya ng calculator nyo yan, eto muna ang i-type. Itong part na to. Ito-type nyo muna yan. So, 1.5 sine 45 degrees. And don't forget the closing parenthesis. Very important yung closing parenthesis, no? Then divided by, yung baba, 2.1. Ito yung makukuha number. We don't want that. We don't need this number. So, paano natin makukuha yung final answer? After we did all of that, we're going to press shift sign answer. Okay, again shift sign answer. Press equal, you'll get the same angle. Okay? So, if you did not follow that, you can just review the video later on. Okay? So, now we move on to the last example. So, a ray of light strikes a piece of glass. So, let's just go here. N equals, yes? You have a question? Ana? Number 3. Number 3, the answer is 30.34 degrees. Is it wrong? Huh? What's that? Okay na. Alright. So, let's move on here. So, a ray of light strikes a piece of glass. Index of refraction is 1.5. Well, nasan yung glass? Nasa baba. Ayun o, meron na siyang label. So, we just put n sub 2 here, which is 1.5. So, this is theta. Hindi, theta lang yan. That's not theta 2. I'm sorry. Okay, remember, the index of refraction of air is always 1. So, n sub 1 here is 1. Okay, remember that. Now, at what angle does the refracted ray make with the surface inside the glass? So, ito yung angle na hinahanap. Well, remember, we need to find n theta 1 here. 30 yan, so 60 to. Okay, remember the sum of these two angles is 90. And then, we need to find theta 2. Ito, hanapin muna natin ang theta 2. Pag nahanap na natin ang theta 2, minus 90 minus theta 2, makukuha natin yung theta lang. Okay? Para makuha natin yan. So, now we will follow the formula again. N sub 1 sine theta 1 equals N sub 2 sine theta 2. Theta 2 ang nawawala. So, this is 1 times sine 60 degrees. Okay? Equals N sub 2 is 1.5. So, 1.5 sine theta 2. Well, theta 2 is missing. So, divide both sides by 1.5. Maka-cancel yung 1.5 dyan. So, we get sine theta 2 equals 1 times sine, wait lang, 1 times sine 60 degrees divided by 1.5. Okay? And then, to get the value of theta 2 again, shift sign. So, arc sign, 1 times sine 60. Well, pwedeng wala na yung parenthesis dyan no? Para hindi na kayo naguguluhan dyan sa mga parenthesis times 1.5. Nilalagay ko lang para detailed yung discussion natin. So, we're going to type this in our calculator again. I'm going to use the method now, hindi kaya fraction. So, 1 sine 60 degrees. Yan, divided by 1.5. 1.5. Press equal. We don't need this answer. So, shift sign answer equals 35.26 degrees. So, this is 35.26 degrees. Okay? Now that we know the value of this angle, which is 35.26 degrees, well, 90 ang total niyan. So, to find theta, we'll just have to compute 90 minus theta 2. And what is theta 2? Well, theta 2 is 35.26 degrees. So, what will be the value of theta? So, ganito lang ang value ng theta. So, ma-minus lang natin yan. 90 minus 35.26 degrees. And we get 54.74 degrees. So, that will be 54.74 degrees. And this is what we want. Okay? Now, after this example, we already know, okay, or we already have all the possible scenarios in Snell's law. Okay? What is that? Do you have any question? So, the quiz tomorrow will revolve around these 4 examples. Okay? 4 examples yan. It will be in Canvas. So, but it will not be synchronous. Excuse me. It will be asynchronous, meaning I will give you the entire morning session. No, actually, I'll give you the entire day tomorrow to finish the quiz. Okay? So, again, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 possible types of problem. Okay?